Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is Friday, October 4th at 9 o'clock and 30 seconds. And that 30 seconds is for our esteemed leader, Luann, who can't tell the time. My name is Leslie Young, and I'm co-chairing the committee. I'd like to make sure everybody's phone is on silent or sit on them. But if you start smiling, we are going to have to ask you to leave. Before we start, I'd like us to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have 5 members, so we do have a quorum. Let's see. I am graced to be able to read our meeting and procedure statement. The governing board who bakes bread conducts all of its meetings, including committee meetings, in compliance with Arizona open meeting laws per ARS 33-1804, and in concert with RCSCW bylaws, policies, standing rules, and obituaries. Parliamentary procedures, as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order, will also be followed, consistent with Bylaw 3.07, procedures for owner-member meetings and standing rules 2 and 3. All questions and comments are directed to the committee chairperson, which would be Luann, because she takes all of those. All comments are entertained at the discretion of the committee chairperson. Speakers shall state their name and member number and speak in a courteous manner. The committee chairperson may limit commentary time and the number of commentators, speakers on any issues. The committee chairperson also may redirect commentary at any individual to the general guest comments agenda line item, except when the committee has discussed the agenda item and consensus or agreement is sought. All fire and room safety precautions and regulations are strictly obeyed at all meetings per the guidelines of the Arizona Fire and Medical Authority. The committee chairperson reserves the right to adjourn any meeting if the safety of the committee, meeting attendees, or others is deemed at risk or if there is too much disruption to continue. After one verbal warning by the chairperson, the committee chairperson also reserves the right to ask any meeting attendees, except you, Marshall, to leave any meeting should their behavior be deemed dangerous or unacceptable. Disciplinary action may follow. Do we have any questions about that? Sweet. Luann, when do you want to step in? Or do you want me to do the screen stuff? Luann is out on the...
No, you go ahead. No, you chair the meeting. You do everything, except if I need to comment. I'll unmute.
First of all, I'd like to welcome all of you in YouTube land. It's nice to see you, and I will neither confirm nor deny that we are all wearing pants. Section 2.0, approval of minutes. Second, meeting minutes are approved. Merle, did you have something?
Yes, please. Before we move on, I just wanted to acknowledge that at the last meeting, there was a comment that was not acknowledged, and it was added to the minutes. So that was what you read, but I would just like to read the following comment that was offered by Lynn Kellis. Lynn wrote, "Thank you for the hard work that you do on this committee. I don't believe many people know how involved your work is. Thank you." And I just wanted to acknowledge that it did come in last week and it was not acknowledged then.
Thank you.
Oh, just to clarify, that was an online comment across YouTube rather than, an audience comment. It was an online comment.
Yes,
Right.
that's correct.
Unless, Luann, you found it floating in the ocean in a bottle. Is that correct? Typical Luann. Okay, safety, we're going to talk about room safety here. We have AFMA Fire Marshal Robert Olmsted here to talk to us about room safety. Sir, thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Good morning. Normally I'm talking this way, but I guess I'll just talk to the board this morning. A few months ago, Karen reached out to me to come and evaluate the room. Evidently that was after the June meeting that was rather packed and a little contentious. So she asked that I come and evaluate the capacity of the room and see if the number as currently constituted would match with the number that was in existence and was posted, and also to talk about whether or not we could have people standing in the aisles, standing in the back, sitting on the counter, et cetera, et cetera. So after reviewing the room layout and consulting both the International Fire Code version 2018 and the International Building Code version 2018, we revised the number of capacity at 107 down from 120, I believe it was previously, and that's been posted. And we also covered another few guidelines that we want to give to attendees and that the board needs to be aware of. So we can't have anybody standing in any of the aisles on the side. We can't have anybody sitting or I would say double occupying any of the aisleways in between in the rows. Can't have anybody sitting on the counter in the back or on the short wall in the back. The reason for that is that if they do so, it puts them into an egress pathway. And what I've said in every meeting, and I'll say to you, is that fire code is very reactive and not very proactive. So in other words, we have the fire codes we have because at some point in the past, many people have been injured or died in an event. And normally that's happened on a number of occasions, and that's how we get fire code. And you're probably not, but if you are at any point in time, I'm happy to tell you about any of those because we study them pretty often because they're bellwether events for the fire service. So for the board reference, there is nothing, there's no space here to have anybody leaning against the walls, standing in the aisleways, or sitting or leaning in the back on the short wall or on the counter. And the capacity of the room is 107. If you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain those.
Do they have to be relevant to fire? My question. Like, what if I wanted to know where the white goes when the snow melts?
Well, that depends. Is the bus driver's hair red or black?
Only if they walk to work and carry their lunch.
Yes, uphill both ways.
And my dad said that.
Everybody's dad said
As did mine. He evidently hiked far farther to school than I did.
I appreciate your time, and actually, that's very good information to know. So thank you so much for coming in. Martin, can you pan across our audience so that we can make sure that they all know and understand what has been said? Thank you so
Have a
much,
great
sir.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fire Marshal. On to new business. For those that are just tuning in, welcome. For our board, Dennis Kolb has resigned, and we have appointed a new person, Judy Thompson. She's a wonderful person. She's been familiar with other committees. Unfortunately, she had an emergency this morning, but you will see her next time, and she's just as witty as Ron. So, welcome, Judy.
I'm sorry.
Next item is the petitioner packet. You guys received a packet of this by mail. The association-specific political activity was updated by the board at the last meeting. We previously listed where and where not petitioning can take place in the packet. However, we are now simply referencing the updated policy. It's easier to read and easier to understand. Does anyone have any questions about the policies? We're all good then?
I have one comment or two comments, Leslie. One thing that we need to.
Luann, could you raise your
hear me?
hand? Could you raise your hand so that we can call on you?
Okay, it's raised.
Okay, yes, Luann.
Okay, one change we need to put in, I believe we had called it, when we asked people for the pickup, or let people know for the pickup location, we said it was in member services, but more specifically, it's in the administrative office of Sun City West. administrative office, which is located in the member services building. And we left in member services building simply because that's how the sign outside is marked. And also we need to add the web address for the election web page, and Katie can tell you exactly how that should be written. And then once we incorporate these changes, provided no one else has anything, then Merle, I talked with her, and since I have limited internet, she can update those areas, and then she'll email it to Karen as soon as possible so that we have it ready for distribution on November 1st. And hopefully we have loads of people that will be anxious to pick it up. That's all.
Katie, can you speak to this?
Sure, the website, and it is live now, is suncitywest.com/2025 election, just like it sounds. And we've got the run for the board videos, we've got the basic election dates, how to pick up a packet, and then we'll add to that as we get closer to the dates.
Excellent. Next up is 4.03, update on the violation process. Luann, would you like to take that?
Yes, the violation process. At our last meeting, we talked about defining a process for violations during the election time. And this was based on a recommendation from a previous committee as well as other input. So we did define the process, spelled it out, and then of course we sent it to the attorney for review. Upon reviewing it, the attorney said that we should not put in a violation process simply because, well, not simply because, but because it opens way too many pitfalls. So we have, and I feel, and the committee, anyone's welcome to ask any questions, but that we should not put in or define a violation process. We do have other policies and bylaws in place that should cover anything that comes up. And, you know, if there are any violations, certainly in the election process, the committee will be more than happy to contact anyone and talk to people one-on-one. And so that's how that stands.
Are there any questions about that? We're good then. Section 4.04. Luann, I know you and Katie have discussed this at great lengths, so I'm going to turn it over to you and Katie.
Okay, yes, Katie and I had great conversation on this. I think what it boils down to are these bylaws, 3, 9, 10, and 11. They deal with phone-in voting, other means of voting, absentee, various types of voting. And what it boils down to is that they were written to cover or reflect Arizona state statute. And I think just like any other laws and such, they can be confusing, but they are written that way. So it does reflect the law. It doesn't call out. And one thing that came up in the recommendation was about homebound voting for people who could not come out, who were not able to. And that term is not defined in these bylaws. However, the other means of voting do cover it. And if we start defining terms such as absentee, homebound, phone-in, and such, if we put that in a bylaw, it locks us in. And it doesn't allow us any way to work. Right now, we handle some of the homebound on a one-on-one basis, but yet legally we're covered by what we have written in the bylaws. So we find that we're probably better to continue as we are, unless somebody, you know, specifically wants to ask about something else. But that's my understanding, and like I say, it's written to coincide with Arizona state statutes. And as Katie was pointing out, as we were discussing, state statute really doesn't keep up with technology. And if we start writing too many details in the bylaws and technology changes, for example, we didn't have online voting 20 years ago. That's just an example. And also, we can't cover every single scenario. And I'm an example of it because I'm down here on the coast and I'm worried that I'm not even going to be able to vote in the national election because there's nothing put in place unless I drive back home. So that's an example of every scenario cannot be covered. So I hope that makes sense. And if Katie wants to comment further, I'll hand it over.
Yeah, I think Luann pretty much summed it up, but I think when you take all these bylaws and you take the state law, the gist of all of it is that you have to accommodate those who aren't here on election day, which we do with, you can call it absentee, online, early, whatever you want to call it. That works and that covers that. And then we have an in-person polling place on election day for those that don't have computer access. So that covers 99% of them. The statutes, and I don't think our bylaws even make reference to homebound voting, but we do that just because we know there's a need. And that homebound can take the form of election person going to the home with a computer, going with a printed ballot, or going and helping them vote by phone. So vote by phone is an option. We don't necessarily advertise it, but everyone that gets an early emailed ballot, it states right in there that if you don't want to vote online, you can call this number and you could use your code and vote. And so that option's available to the early voters and to the homebound as well. So covering everybody in compliance with state law, in compliance with the bylaws. There may have been some questions about what is absentee versus early versus online. Fact is, it's the same thing.
Katie, just out of curiosity, how many homebound did we do last year?
I want to say it's less than 10, probably closer to 5 every year.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Katie?
Nope, happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Leslie, one more thing that I've got my hand up. One more thing that I do want to add about the bylaws and several items that we're covering in our meeting. These were to address the recommendations that were made by previous committees. So we want people to know that we have more or less done our due diligence in investigating and seeing what's possible and determining should we do anything. So I just want to let folks know this is why these items are coming up. It's based on recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a lot of concerns about homebound voting?
No, it's just, from my understanding, it's just to allow people that aren't able to get out.
I
At
understand
least
that,
there's
but,
process.
okay, all right,
I think one of the reasons this was on that last group of recommendations was just the confusion of the verbiage. Absentee or homebound, or absentee, early, online. You know, we don't call anything necessarily absentee, but our early voting is absentee voting.
Ah,
So it's just verbiage, and we can rephrase that or explain that in the PR if that's the committee's wish. But nothing programmatically will change, it's just in the verbiage.
oh, Katie, I'm glad you brought up PR because we're going to be asking you some questions. 4.05, PR and radio platform. As we progress into the new year, we're going to be talking about this in a lot more detail, the election process. But Katie, could you give us a quick example in places that we can utilize the PR?
Sure. Print media-wise, we've got the Rec Center News, we've got bulletin boards, and we've got press releases that go out to several different media outlets and to the community and staff like that. And then social media-wise, we've got Facebook, Instagram, our website. We even post on X, formerly known as Twitter. So a variety of different outlets.
Do you have a timeline for when things need to be submitted?
If it's going in print media, it needs to be probably a month in advance. So we do not actually have the petitions being available in the October news, but it will be in the November Rec Center News on page 1. So people will know petitions are available. And then we'll get it out earlier on the social media. Social media deadline, a week, just so we have time to get it in the rotation. If there's an emergency, we can certainly work with that.
Outstanding. Last meeting, we talked about the importance of utilizing our radio. Ron, can you give us some ideas of how to use it?
Well, a couple of things that we can do. Right off the bat, the rec center show that we run every week, we have, general manager comes on and Katie comes on occasion. We can certainly, during the course of asking questions, put in a reminder of things that are going on, whether it's for the petition or whether it's for, getting the vote out, that sort of thing. Also, the committee can maybe put together a public service announcement that the radio station could run, whether it's to talk about it's time to, if you're interested in becoming a board of directors member, contact, such and such, and get particulars out on that, and maybe follow the same sort of timeline that Katie mentioned for print in terms of, you don't want it out there too early, you don't want it out there too late. So we'll come up with, maybe amongst us, come up with some sort of timeline to get it on there for petition, and then start doing things again when it comes closer to election day. It's something that has always been a topic of discussion that generally I get to bring up on a regular basis once it gets more appropriately from a time standpoint. So we do have the radio station built out there to make it possible to get the word out to people that who are listening to the station on a regular basis.
Just a quick question. Do you know how many people listen?
We have unfortunately no way of measuring that. There is no survey system that we have in place. So the only thing we can see occasionally, we can see how many people are possibly listening online as opposed to over the air, because we are available at suncitywestradio.com. You can listen to the station live via the internet, along with tuning at 103.1.
Love that station. Thanks, Ron.
Well, thank you for that.
Leslie, one other thing, Katie, Torch is starting next Thursday, and that is always a good place to recruit potential candidates, and we do reiterate the petitions, the process. During Session 5 tours, we go through the governing board area, they talk directly with Karen. Those interested, she's got the petition, so we do hit the Torch class pretty heavily as well.
I forgot about Torch. Good pickup there, Katie. Item 4.06, update. Our election page is now active on the Sun City West webpage. We've added a couple of videos from the governing board directions about serving on the board and are encouraging our members to consider running. Katie, I know that you've already talked to us about how to get on the web, but for those that just came in live on YouTube, could you explain that again?
Sure. So the election webpage is at suncitywest.com/2025 election. But we also have two links on the homepage. So right under the top menu, you'll see a link. And then towards the middle of the page on the homepage, there's I think it's called Quick Links, and it is right there as well. So you don't have to type that all in. Go to suncitywest.com and you'll find the link on the homepage.
Nice, very nice. Moving on, 4.07, assistance with petitioner packet distribution. Committee members, we discussed previously that we need 3-hour time slots for passing out petitioner packets from you guys and answering any questions on Friday, November 1st, Monday and Tuesday, 3rd, 4th, from 9 to 12 and from 12 to 3. We have a meeting the morning of the 1st, and Karen can handle until someone can take over after the meeting. Do we have any volunteers to help pass out? And do you have a time frame that you want to choose?
No, not necessarily. So if you want me to go right over after the meeting, I'll just head on over then.
Sweet. Anybody else? Yeah. Ron. Marshall, when do you want to go?
I could probably do Friday
After the meeting. Oh, why am I writing this down wrong? And certainly, Luann and I will fill in wherever there's gaps. So just plan on utilizing us. Even if it's all 3 days, we don't care. And Luann has no other plan. She'll be back from the beach, so she can live over there for all we care.
What date did you say, November 1st?
It's the 1st, the 3rd, and the 4th, from 9 to noon and from noon to 3. Where do you want me to scratch you?
You don't tell, I'll tell it. I'm going to the state volleyball tournament.
How convenient, Marshall. All right, You got to scratch Merle then. All right, so we've got, and Judy will be back, so we'll have enough people. Comments. We're now at 5.01. Any members of the audience have any comments? I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, so you don't want to say anything again? Okay, I gotcha. Any comments from our committee? Okay, Merle, can you check and see if we have any comments from online? It's a quiet day. Oh my gosh. What we need is Wyatt Earp to bring in the brothers and we can have a shootout. All right. Before we adjourn, I know that last week we talked about having a strip poker party. Because of the influx of people, we're going to have to postpone it, but we don't have enough tables nor decks of cards, so prepare next week. Please bring your pennies and extra layers of clothing, especially you, Marshall. Moving on to adjournment. The time is now 9:26 and 10 seconds. I adjourn the meeting. Vote to adjourn. Marshall seconds it. Next committee meeting is November 1st. Marshall, you won't be here?
I'm trying to think, is it November 1st? That's Friday?
Yeah.
And you said 4th and 5th?
4th and 5th, right. Okay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you to the committee members. Karen, Katie, thank you.